All right. Good morning, everyone. We're joined by some of the team from Plug and Play. This is the latest iteration of Orlando Tech Community's tenX Talk series. So, without further ado, we're joined by Jake McGee, Allison Chandler, and Siyash Mahan from Plug and Play that are leading a lot of the initiatives in Orlando. Jake is leading corporate innovation. Allison is program manager, and then Siyash is kind of the ventures lead for this community. So I think it would be great to kind of pass the mic over to the Plug and Play team, get a view of everything that they're doing, and then we'll dive into some Q&A with them so that we can all learn more about what they're bringing into the community. So Jake, I'll pass it to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken, and everyone on the call. Thank you for joining today. Thank you for, a lot attended last week. We're really excited to be here. We're really excited to get started. I know a few of you, if we haven't met, please continue to reach out. Things are starting to settle down at least a little bit. Want to continue to meet as many people in the community in the area as we can. I guess first we'll do quick introductions on our end. So we have recently just moved back from RHQ in Silicon Valley. I have a lot of family in Florida. I went to UF for grad school, so this is a place I wanted to get back to. I'll be doing a lot of the sort of lead on the Smart Cities program at UCF, and then a lot of our initiatives around the state. So really excited to be part of this. Suyash, I'll pass it over to you for introduction, and then Allison, we'll send it to you.
Sure, absolutely. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today as we delve into Plug and Play's venture in Orlando. Some of you, I think, have already met. I'm Suyash. I'll be leading the venture practices based out of Orlando. Just moved down from Chicago. I was a venture investor here as well. So super excited. But yeah, hopefully get to see you guys in person soon enough. But yeah, I'll pass it on to Allison.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Jake and I are in the same room, so sorry for the echo. I'm Allison Chandler. I see a lot of familiar faces. I've been in Orlando here for since 2018, so I am rooted in the community, and I will be the program manager and events manager for Plug and Play here in Orlando. So just handling all of the day-to-day operations, working with the startups through the accelerator program, and managing the Smart Cities program on the ground here in Orlando. So I look forward to working with all of you closely. And if we have not met, please reach out. Love to have coffee and get to know you more and what you're doing here in Orlando as well.
Awesome. Jake, did you want to run through any materials?
Yeah, I'm going to pull up about 7 slides. I'm going to go through them very quickly because I think the more important piece of the day is the conversation and the Q&A and just getting to know each other. So, Ken, if you can confirm that these are flipping through and that
Yep,
you're
good.
Awesome. So everyone, Plug and Play, really referred to as the world's largest innovation platform, which is a broad term, but kind of fits our mission well, which is to drive innovation by connecting entrepreneurs, startups, universities, governments, corporations, investors worldwide to really bring technology to market faster. And really what that means fits in these 3 buckets for us. And I think there's a role and a place for everyone in the community to sort of work with Plug and Play. I like to share our sort of origin story because I think it fits kind of who Plug and Play is. Our CEO and founder, Saeed Hamidi, who was here last week, was on stage, very traditional guy, immigrated from Iran, was able to buy real estate within Palo Alto in Silicon Valley, specifically University Ave, the main strip headed into Stanford. He had a family business on the first floor and then had 2 office spaces to fill on the second. So Saeed was being approached by a lot of startups of how, that wanted the space, that really wanted to be involved in Palo Alto right near Stanford, was able to invest through a fund and watch Google grow from 4 to 45 employees in a space, and then exchange 2 years of rent where return 1 into equity for PayPal, followed by Logitech and followed by Danger, the operating system for the T-Mobile Sidekick. This led Saeed and his brother to say our hobby is a little bit more lucrative and fun than this family business of bottled water and packaging that they still run at a high level. How can we advance this? So in 2006, we purchased our HQ out in Silicon Valley at 180,000 square feet. where still to this day, about 300, 350 startups rent space and call this home. 2013 is when corporations began approaching us saying, hey, you all have technologies we're looking for. How can we do more together? Where current day, this now sits with about 550 plus corporate partners across 24 industries and now approaching 63 cities, 33 countries around the world. And that's really where we've been able to excel as a VC. We're one of the most active VCs in the world, doing about 200 investments a year, and about 100K check sizes is kind of what we look for. The two pieces that we do with all of our partners is one, the corporate innovation piece, where you can look at as sort of the individual pieces that exist, where our partners come to us with technology challenges. We bring back the relevant solutions around the parameters set. The big thing about plug and play that I think is very, has a big appetite for partners is that we're stage agnostic and we don't require equity from the startups to work with us. It is a corporate. The corporates are the ones that paying into the membership, and then the return on investment from these investments we make into startups is really where plug and play makes it money, which allows us to be in these communities and not push away any technology because of a rigid term sheet or because it doesn't have what the corporates are looking for. So it could be, 3 people in a garage with an early stage cutting edge idea, all the way up to a later stage company that has results, has partners. And then we do this through, deal flows, innovation days, trends reports, with the basic goal of increasing revenue, decreasing costs, fixing an inefficiency within an organization. The second, third piece is our innovation platforms, which are really centered around our accelerator programs. We're now running about 100 of these around the world, with across the 24 industries out of Silicon Valley, and then in offices like we're putting here in Orlando, where our corporate partners are the ones that bring us the technology challenges that are moving the industry forward. Then we source for a top, 75, top 50 list. It's then narrowed down, and then we do a selection day. Some of that was like last week. We had about 22 startups present, and then our partners vote again. And then we start a 3-month curriculum where we do this twice a year. This is really to move the industry forward. And we feel that it has the long-term economic development play in these regional markets as well, where if we can keep and give access for startups that are on the ground locally, that they won't feel the need that they have to leave the community. We can bring in our partners, we can bring in our VC partners to really grow these opportunities. So really, if you think about it, plug and play sits in the middle, and our goal is to really be that facilitated matchmaker, broker, connector for everybody that's in the value chain and in the ecosystem. So if it's a startup, if it's a corporation, if it's an investor, if it's a ecosystem member that wants to be a mentor, there's a place, and that's where we really like to bring these people together to make everyone have the opportunity to grow, to scale, and to see if they have the next big company that can exist. And we don't want it to fail because it didn't have access to customers or investments, that if it's not going to make it, it's because, the technology had the chance and it just wasn't strong enough for what the market needed. So last couple slides is just the global reach, where we have boots on the ground. We have offices that we're running industry-specific programs around the globe with, employees, programs, whether it's public, private, government, universities, whoever it might be, that are running these programs with us. And this is really where we like to bring together our technologies, because if there's a solution, in the Smart Cities program that's sitting in Abu Dhabi or sitting in Tokyo, it doesn't mean it shouldn't have access to the Orlando market just because there weren't boots on the ground from the companies we're working with. So that's really the task we take to bring to our partners around the globe, so they don't have to go try and find it all on their own. Last one is really just the names and the size of some of the companies that we're working with, which then is what allows us really to be able to get the validation and get the access to the startups that are working with us. So Ken, I'll stop there. I think that was just a quick high level overview, and now we can really get into more of the conversational piece and get to know each other a little bit today.
Yeah, I mean, if you could leave that up, actually, and if you looked at the map, I mean, that's kind of where I think the first question that I would have, and probably a lot of people have, is, there's a lot of white space here, even in the United States, and you picked Neo City and Orlando, and so I think it'd just be great to kind of start off there on why did Plug and Play pick Orlando out of all the places in the world to expand to next? And what did they see in Orlando?
Yeah, I think the big piece we've seen is our Saeed likes to say that he forgot about the US. When what he means by that is, prior to COVID, everybody sort of wanted to go to Silicon Valley. So we had much less offices within the US because people were flying out there on a more consistent basis. It was before we could do these online, calls, meetings, and really post COVID, there's been a lot of alignment for economic development. And, I think we came together. It really started when the Build Back Better opportunity came to light. The OEP was sort of the point of contact. They came out to Silicon Valley, saw one of our summits, and then fortunately there was an Orlando executive visit going to Stuttgart, Germany. This was mentioned a few times, but they went out, they were able to see our startup Autobahn program, which is at the HQ of Mercedes-Benz, sort of the future of AV and EV space. And where, it's a mobility program where it's Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, Land Rover, Jaguar, BMW, Bentley, where they're all coming together to be this consortium to move that industry forward. And then when, Dr. Cartwright, Mayor Demings, Duke, Tavistock all came back, they sort of said, hey, this is something that we think Orlando is ready for. And Florida was a market that we really wanted to expand into as well. So it was kind of coming together and saying, hey, there's a lot of great work that's already happening here in Orlando. How can Plug and Play add to that to, extend the global reach for additional capital, for additional corporate introductions for the companies, but knowing that it's an area that is ripe for innovation and technology advancement.
And I'm curious to know, you named a lot of really good things, right? In Orlando, a lot of the right ingredients are in place that make sense to expand. What do you think that Plug and Play brings to Orlando and to the ecosystem that's kind of missing today, and that you think you'll be able to bring and be accretive over time?
Yeah, and so I like to say it takes a village for these things to succeed, and that's something just from having talked to now, a lot of people in the ecosystem in the market. I think what Plug and Play can bring, I like to say it's bringing that last 20% to where there's going to be opportunities to where there's great work already being done. There's a lot of great organizations, accelerators, companies doing great work on the ground. But then there gets to a point where it's like, okay, now how do we take this to the next market? How do we get this out into the world, into, the corporate market, into the governments, into VCs for additional funding outside of the areas? And that's where we believe Plug and Play's relationships are going to be able to make those introductions happen quicker and help technologies, startups get validated at a much faster pace. There's a lot of these markets that we have where they might not be as far along advanced as Orlando. And that's why I'm very bullish on what we can do here, is because, that reach that we show here with the corporate list that we show here that's who companies need to get to. And we don't want them to have to feel the need that they need to leave communities to get there. Every state, city that wants to have innovation and wants to work with Plug and Play, we feel that we can deliver those introductions at a very high level to make sure that if a technology can grow and scale, it can do it within the community that it was born in.
Yeah, and you were kind of alluding to this a little bit, but what are some of the kind of lessons learned from other success stories, from other other programs that you've launched, and that, I mean, maybe I'd phrase it as, if there's an ask for this community and people on the call, that we all need to, it sounds like, everybody needs to kind of be rowing together and be a part of the village of trying to drive it forward. But if there's anything tactically that we can all do to help make sure that it's a success, just like other programs, then I think we'd be curious to know.
Yeah, I think the big thing is we just continue to get to know each other. I think a lot of time has been spent doing that. But if there's events, if there's opportunities, if there's introductions that are needed, if there's technologies that are growing that, want to see what exists, where they can get, placed in the market, it's really getting to know each other. We're going to be releasing the programming, the agenda, the kind of events that we're going to be trying to add to the market in the next, few weeks. But at the same time, if there's already great things being done, include us, invite us, make sure that we can do some things together. Let's co-brand some things. Let's really make sure that we take every step forward to help anybody and everybody that's in the ecosystem. Because it's when you come into a new market, you don't know what you don't know. And we've taken the time to try to meet as many people as we can, but there's still a long way to go in that. And we want to make sure that we're seen as that ally, that assistance piece of, this is a community we truly believe in. We're excited to be here, but it takes work, and it takes work together to make sure that we get to that next level, because it's a state that, has the support, as you saw from the state level, of both of our launches last week in Neo City and at UCF. And then it's something that, we believe with the local support as well. There's no reason that a startup cannot stay, grow, and get to unicorn level repeatedly here in the Orlando market.
Yeah. Maybe just taking a step back a bit, just kind of the logistics in the whole structure. Is Plug and Play intending on investing into Orlando-based companies, both those, and I guess I'd break that into associated with the programs and then not associated with the programs. Does Plug and Play invest outside of the program still in these communities?
Yes. So our Saeed, so the two ways we kind of invest is, one, we do about $30-50 million a year out of, the family office. And then we have 4 industry specific funds: brand and retail, sustainability, financial services, supply chain, and logistics. So there's going to be companies, and I guess the cool part of the accelerator is that it can be an early stage, it can be a later stage company, kind of all mixed together, but there's no rigid term sheet to where we don't have to push away the later stage companies that aren't in our investment thesis from the family office. And Saeed really likes to reinvest in the communities that we open up in. So we want to help grow, find these technologies, and then whether the investments come directly from Plug and Play or the VC networks that we've formed around the world, we want to make sure that the best technologies here in town have access to these additional funding opportunities to expand outside of just the state or just the area, to be seen by more eyes, to be able to grow, to get in front of the potential, CVCs at the corporations that they could be working with, or, an angel investor who's sitting in Silicon Valley that just, has maybe done an exit that wants to commit to some new technologies, or if it's, Plug and Play itself. I think he likes to say that he wants to invest in about, 4 to 6 different companies in these areas that we go to. And I think with the presence that we're going to have in town with the 2 locations, with, just to backtrack on that, a semiconductor program down at Neo City with Osceola County, and then a smart cities program with Orange County government, Duke Energy, Tavistock, and UCF are the 2 programs. But that doesn't mean if you're a fintech company, if you're an insurance company that's being born in this area, that Plug and Play is not going to be looking to invest, and then also not going to be looking to get you involved within the greater ecosystem that we have.
Got it. Okay, so that'd be a yes. We should expect Plug and Play to be investing both in companies in those 2 programs, and then potentially outside of those as well in the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And that's a similar question is, how do you plan to work with, the VCs in the area, the angel communities in the area, the accelerator programs that are already kind of established and in the area? What's the typical way that Plug and Play tends to engage with all of those different participants that have, been here for years?
Yeah, I think for the accelerator programs or the programs that are mentoring, helping startups, we like to be able to be a potential feeder program or an opportunity to get to know each other, saying, hey, we have these 10 startups that are graduating out of, X, Y, and Z program. How can Plug and Play then assist to get them? What do they need? Who do they need to get in front of to see their results, to see what, can come to light? And then, so we want to be seen as that ally to use our network to be able to take companies that are probably on the earlier stage going through programs in town to help deliver them to where they might need to go or who they might need to meet, whether if it's through webinars, if it's through events, if it's through just one-off introductions. We're open and want to do that. And then with the VCs and angels in town in the state, our goal is to make sure that they're included on a lot of our pitch events, our in-person events, anything that we're doing within the community as we do these selection days moving forward, as we meet these companies moving forward, that they're there seeing these pitches. So there's the opportunity to, one, if there is a local company that they maybe haven't seen, that they can get their eyes on it and say, hey, we want to be part of this. Or if it's a company that we're trying to entice to or incentivize to move to the region, that they can say, hey, there's a great support system that's already here on the ground. Then we can really get them in front of the right people to be able to bring them and have them sort of set up shop within the greater Orlando region.
So I only had a few more, and then I do want to kind of open it up and for some other Q&A here. But I kind of wanted to talk about success in a few different ways. Maybe the first being you've alluded to some of the value that plug and play brings, and like I think it was at Neo City. I know Cynthia from Mavi was there and she spoke and talked about some of the introductions that plug and play's made for her company. I think I don't know if you can rattle off some like success stories or the typical playbook that, tends to work for the early stage companies that you're involved with, and you introduce them to XYZ and therefore, now they look like this. But if you can talk through some success stories or case studies, I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I think, and I think it's twofold, which, it's not all going to be the perfect situation where you get introduced to somebody, it turns into a pilot, you get introduced to 3 more people, and then now you have 25 partners. I think just as importantly, it's helping entrepreneurs know if they don't have an idea. Where it's like, hey, we introduced you, if it's an insurtech company, where we introduce you to 8 insurance companies, you attend an event, and then it's, hey, a pilot wasn't made, the feedback wasn't strong. So what's next there? Do you pivot? Do you continue to push down the path? Do you see what the future is? Do you make a new idea? Because that's, as we know, most startups fail. I think, what is it, 99, 1 out of 10 makes it to that, that high level. So it's not all just going to be, wins and results and, let's say fairy tale ending. It's going to be some harsh truths, some tough realities. And I think it's great to, as you see this map here, an opportunity to really, whichever markets are necessary for the company or the events plug and play runs, that we can get you involved, get you in front of the people that you need to either get that success as a win or a, hey, what's next? So another success measure is, I've seen companies that were in our fintech batch, because they're at sort of the vertical agnostic event, our summits, they were introduced to a supply chain company that then they were able to pivot, take that technology there. And because of the appropriate introductions, they're now in a different field, but they're having that long-standing results. And I think the number one way plug and play kind of sees results is, I'll use one example where I think Walmart was having a stock out solution issue where they were trying to figure out, they had too much material in one place, not enough in these other workshops. How could they get this more aligned? We introduced them to a company called Previdere, where it was sort of a stock out solution issue, predictive analytics. They now were able to help save them, 9 figures a year on getting the right amount of materials in each location. So that's kind of your unicorn type win, but it's a place where these can happen at any size and scale. And that's really where the success measure comes for plug and play. Are we getting investment to the right companies? Are we getting them access to it, to where they've at least made introductions? I always say, if a company's going to fail, I would rather it be because they're not good enough, not because they didn't have the opportunity to meet the appropriate funders and customers, because that's really where plug and play's goal comes in. There's a lot of people that might have that next greatest solution, but they don't know who to go to. You can't just go on LinkedIn and hope to get the head of innovation at BP, at Nike, at Coca-Cola. But with plug and play, if you have a solution that's been proven, then you're able to get that introduction, ad hoc, or within our internal software called Playbook, where we store the startups, where we have about 82,000 startups now sourced and vetted through our organization around the world. And then we put them in collections and lists to bring to our partners if it's around the ask wanted. And then it's really up to them which ones they want to meet. So it's really about getting, I would say the success is getting the startups in front of the people that they need to see and that they want to meet with. And that's really the long-term goal and results, is to make more and more companies here within Orlando not only meet the corporates that are in town, but have access to these global network that plug and play has to get those long-term results.
Yeah, so I guess it would be like client and investor validation, right? You're getting, some of these early stage companies in front of customers that they would, or potential customers that they otherwise wouldn't, and they're validating what they're doing, directing them to pivot, just putting them on a different trajectory. Is that kind of
Yeah,
fair
I'd say,
to say?
yeah, I'd say that's a great way to put it. It's it's getting them a scope to a world they might not be able to do on their own. And that's
Yeah.
really what we've been able to put together. We sit in the middle and really try to spin the wheel of how can we help everybody involved? Because we have corporates, it's the same way we say, hey, A startup might not be able to find the corporate. At the same time, if it's a corporation that sits in London, if it's a corporation that's sitting up in Alberta, Canada, they might not know that the best solution for them is sitting down in, Greater Orlando. But we need to make sure that when they ask for that, that we have the resources in place to get a company that's here on the ground connected to a corporate that's sitting in Canada, that's sitting in Europe. And that's something that we've been able to do at a high level.
Yeah, just tying together some thoughts, and it's like this, just my own opinion, so take it with a giant spoon of salt. But it's like, I earlier I asked what you think you're bringing into the ecosystem that's kind of missing or accretive, and I think one of the challenges with Florida is it's this geographically isolated, part of the country, and a lot of the networks that I think a lot of people bring are very regionally intensive. It's strong in the state or in the southeast. But then it's a lot harder to build it throughout the country just because of where the state's geographically positioned. And it's even harder to build it globally. So I think that if we can, the startups, the investors, everybody in the ecosystem can tap into that network that's global, that has a Rolodex that's very accretive and different to what we've built. And I think a lot of people here probably have a deeper local Rolodex, obviously, just because that's where our roots have been. So I think there's some synergies and some ways to work together for sure in that capacity.
Yeah, and I think with what's starting to grow within Latam, with what's really having entrepreneurs, companies very excited to be in Florida, I think it's only the beginning, and I think that's why it makes us really excited as well, is the growth that is headed Florida's direction. Some that's already started, already happening, and then what's going to continue to come just because of the appeal of the state, the appeal of living here, working here, and then I guess that I mentioned Latam just a second ago, but the startups within, those different countries very intrigued to want to work within Florida. I think there's a lot to come, and I think there's a lot to be excited about within the state.
Last question from me, and then would love to open it up, is kind of what's next. And maybe if you can break it into 2 to 3 weeks, 2 to 3 months, maybe 2 to 3 years. I know you guys have a lot going on right now, but what do you see kind of in the imminent, in the short term, and then the long term, in the playbook right now?
Yeah, so we should announce our first cohort, 10 startups that'll be joining the batch, the 3-month program, hopefully by the end of this week. And then we'll be putting together programming over those next 3 months where public events, individual introductions, really getting involved within the events that are already taking place. So I know I've met a lot of you, but if there's things going on that we might not know about, please share that invitation. Please share that invite. One of the 3 of us would love to be at most everything that's happening within the area. And then sort of moving forward, then we're finalizing the date, but sometime June, July, we'll have the summit where you'll be able to see these startups present, have another event with, the appropriate roundtables, panels, the whole ecosystem coming together again. So we'll be selecting a date with that. And then we restart the process where we'll be doing this a second time a year with the selection day, followed by another cohort. And then that's what we really want to rinse and repeat and get, very integrated into the community with what's already going on. And then add our flavor to that as well with these 2 cohorts, with a selection day, with a expo, and then rinse and repeat that process twice a year for the next few years. And then hopefully for a lot longer after that.
Awesome. Okay, well, I would love to open it up for questions. I don't know how we do this with 50 people on. Maybe everybody just go on mute and start screaming at once and see what Jake can answer.
I'll start. Hey, Jake, good to see you. Thanks for the briefing. Is there a way that some of the current ecosystem that has seen companies that would play well for semiconductor or smart cities or follow-on verticals that we help you with some of those companies that may want to apply for the succeeding cohorts?
So Yash, I'll let you take this one, but I think putting your email in the chat will be valuable as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think echoing what Jake said, reaching out to me and any companies in the smart cities realm or even semiconductors, I can help connect them to the right folks out there. Yeah, it would be great help. Let me just actually send over my email on the chat, and then we can talk from there.
Okay, thanks.
And it's really even if there are companies in town that aren't in the spaces that we mentioned, we still want, if you believe there's a technology that is doing great work, as an opportunity to really make it as an MVP. That's kind of where our startups start with a minimum viable product. The introductions to us are going great. I see Carol Ann on here as well. We're going to be putting together, hopefully end of the month, a mixer of some sort where we want to sort of put an open call to any of the startups that are in the community, in the UCF incubation centers, to where we can introduce ourselves, get together, really give the opportunity to meet, and then dive even deeper into what the organization does and what are the best paths forward. And I think the one thing about Plug and Play that kind of makes us sort of stay as sort of Switzerland, if you will, is that the partners that we have are who dictate which ones join the cohort. So it's not just pushing portfolio companies. It's not just bringing in what we want to see. It's really we take the votes from our corporate partners, and that's what we're doing right now with gathering from, it was UCF, Orange County, Duke, Tavistock, as they did the selection day last week, and then narrowing it down around what they were looking for. And I'll answer just some of these that are sitting in the chat as well. So Mason, I think right now for myself and I'll put my email too, myself and Suyash, anything startup related, like for introductions, we are the ones that you want to send that information to. If it's something that's not particularly handled within this area, we'll be able to connect with the appropriate person at Plug and Play for that introduction, for that conversation. And I think that's the piece that, the economic development piece that we're really excited about, where if it's, even as I mentioned earlier, even if it's not exactly relevant to the program that is taking place on the ground, we want to make sure that startups that are here in the region can get introduced to the appropriate team members for those introductions, so that they can have everything they need staying within, that greater Orlando area. So Spencer, I'm looking at yours on there as well. I think some of it happens naturally. Some of it is where, for example, the launch event that we had last week, the question was, how will you facilitate investments from local funds, investors, just to make sure that the people have the opportunity to meet. We want to make sure that we have the appropriate number of events, that we get invitations to the webinars, to the things that we have around the globe in these areas of smart cities, to where you can be on calls, you can see the names of the investors that are on there, get you involved with potential pitch opportunities. Those are things that we will want to set up as well. Even if you're not in the current cohort, we could potentially do pitch days to, clearly start with the local VC fund opportunities, but then also if, pitch to the appropriate VCs that we have in Silicon Valley and around the world as well. Can you elaborate on how many startups can join the Plug and Play cohort? And if you're not selected, are there opportunities to participate? So we'll be doing 2 cohorts a year with 10 companies in each one. And so this will be, and then down in Neo City, I believe will be about, don't quote me exactly on it, probably about 15 companies in that cohort will run for 9 months. There's one here in UCF will be about 2-3 month programs, as the semiconductor companies take a little bit longer to materialize. And then, yes, there's still opportunities to participate, such as, attending the different events, still getting the opportunity to meet the people that are looking to be in investments, getting you the one-off introductions to the appropriate corporations, getting you on our internal software called Playbook. So now that you're, have the opportunity to be selected from, in these collections that we share with our partners for introductions, around the world. So there's a lot of opportunities to get involved. You can then potentially apply, get involved with the next cohort as well. This first one was a little bit more past relationships, Plug and Play pushing forward, because it was something that it happened quick. It was about a 3-month turnaround from, contract signed, hiring, getting office space, and things will settle down and slow down a little bit. And this will be kind of a good trial run for everybody to see, okay, this makes sense what they're doing here. How can we get involved in the next step? And then the next cohort will have an open call for applications from people in the area. What characteristics of startups fall outside of your areas of service? Do you not typically assist? I think for a lot of technology-based startups, I think with the vision of can it get to that sort of unicorn level, we're not doing as many of sort of the small businesses in town that are just opening up or things like that. It's really the ones that have that scale and size that they could get to, where they can really help assist with these major corporations who become our partners. So our governments, universities, corporates. But at the same time, there's a way in the middle that I think what we call kind of our service partners, where if you have something that you can either deliver to the startups that are going through the program, or specifically in the area, we want them to be able to be introduced to the appropriate people. If you are, offering HR services, if you potential legal fees, banking opportunities, these are people that we want them to be able to meet, because then they're able to have the resources they need within the region to say, hey, why would I leave Orlando if I have my bank here now? I have my legal team here now. I have, X, Y, and Z. And that's something that is really the village that it takes, if you will, to move the industry forward.
So, Jake, I have a question for you. I know that you've got a number of these programs around the world, and you make a big thing about being part of the existing ecosystem. So can you share where perhaps in other places you have done a selection for the people who are going to go into your accelerator program, and for those companies that don't get selected, that maybe you create an opportunity and a pathway into the existing entrepreneurial support ecosystem to be able to give those non-selected companies a better pathway and to be further forward for consideration for the next accelerator program that Plug and Play offers?
First, hi, Don. Second, yes. I think the way I like to look at it from what I've seen is, one, these programs have changed a little, really, again, post-COVID is where we really started expanding outside of just private relationships, really within the US, to where states, local governments have come in. So there's a much more invested interest on what's happening in the community. So those are things that we can build out together. Those are ones saying, hey, you come and say, hey, this would be very valuable for the startups that aren't in the program. Can we set something up like that? And we work together. We want to take ideas. We want to know what's important for the community on how, it might be outside of what we've typically done over time. But if it's something that is valuable for sort of the Orlando region, for, the partners that we're working with, or the startups that are in town, we want to hear these suggestions. We want to hear these ideas and do what we have the time and bandwidth to do. But I think also how that happens a little bit is attendance to the events, attendance to the expos, attendance to the selection day, the launch event type things, to where you're now meeting the people naturally with that synergy that comes about at these kind of mixers and gatherings that we've all seen, to where it's like, hey, I didn't know that, X, Y, and Z was looking for this. They might have met a company that, is not in the program or in the cohort at the current time, but it still has a great solution that can solve problems for, X, Y, and Z within the region. So some of those we'll be building out, and would love to chat more on how we build those out together. Because that's something that's really important to us too. Because even if you're not in the cohorts that we're going to be running, we still want every startup that can in the area to succeed. And so we can figure out ways together on how we can make the appropriate event or webinar or whatever that might be to get them to where they want to go.
Hey, Jake, I had thrown a question in the chat. You had mentioned prior to Dawn's question about those service providers, that network of HR or legal or marketing self-serving marketing agency, but how do you get involved, or what does that look like? How are you vetting those possible resources for the groups?
Yeah, that's where you'll have usually reach out to us, and then also then you'll have a conversation with probably Allison on that for what makes the most sense, what are the services that you're offering. And then when we start these cohorts, we usually sort of present sort of like a booklet or a onboarding material of, hey, if you're looking for this within the region, here are 20 companies, out of Silicon Valley, because that program's, we're now 10, 11 years in, they get cloud credits, they get introductions to, your Equifax opportunities, your ServiceNow, et cetera, different service partners. But here we really want to make sure that they're knowing who the local teams are, the groups that are working, as you mentioned, legal, HR, marketing, all the above. And that if there's a ask from one of the startups, we know where to go. And that's again where this comes, of interest for us to continue to meet people such as yourself that are in these different spaces, so we can make sure we know to send companies to the local communities, to the local companies that are doing this, so we can connect everyone in that realm as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions here?
I would have one just to throw back to the group, and I've mentioned it a couple times. If you have events, if you have any type of thing, small or large, that you would like to get Plug and Play involved with, to attend, to grow, just to get to know each other, we would love to support. We'd love to be there. We'd love to learn kind of more and more how the communities run. I mean, we've really tried to take a lot of time to meet a lot of the appropriate people, but we haven't clearly been able to meet everyone yet. And I do appreciate the support that we've been given from the beginning, and we want to really do the region proud as well. So anything that's kind of taking place, please, include us, and we want to be a part as well.
I have a question for you guys. Are you working much outside of Orlando? In the state, but quite a few hours away.
So a lot of these new locations, I guess the quick answer is yes, but I guess to the size and scale that we're working in Orlando, no. Each of these new locations is kind of brought in by the community. So as I mentioned, who kind of brought in these two offices, we're looking to grow, expand, see things within the states. I think if there's a technology, a startup that's sitting in Tampa, that's sitting in Tallahassee, Jacksonville, that we want to have them involved to make sure that they're aware within the Orlando region. But right now we've done due diligence to get to meet people at the state level, at the different corporate levels, and the different communities, just to introduce ourselves. So I guess you can take that answer for, I guess, how it is, but not like the presence we have in Orlando. Nina, could you elaborate on I guess I might have missed part of Esther's question that I guess didn't answer properly.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, I think she's asking what kind of startups you don't work with.
So I would say there's if it doesn't have an MVP, we're not quite ready at the same place it really needs to have a solution that we can introduce to our partners to either increase revenue, decrease costs, fix inefficiency within their organization. That's kind of the bread and butter of, why they're paying members into our program. I guess the startups that aren't in the technology space, we don't do as much with, but that doesn't mean we can't if it's an ask from who we work with. And then at the same time, I wouldn't say we don't assist some of the ones, but if it gets to a point where like they're not being selected to be introduced to our partners, it could come across that way. Usually we put the companies into our internal software, as I mentioned, called Playbook, to where they're now being able to sort of like a catalog for startups, to where these companies, when they ask us, our team then source vetted returns a list of the companies, and then the corporates pick which ones they want to meet with. So if it's a solution that's not garnering a lot of interest from our partners, then it could look that way, but we're not against having them and having their introductions and conversations happening with a lot of natural synergy. Kind of organically at the different events and opportunities. But we really don't try to push away any technologies without at least meeting them and hearing them out, vetting them, learning what they do to make sure that if there is a opportunity for them to grow and scale with plug and play's help, we want to be that sort of matchmaker.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe a similar question, Jake, is like, what is a what is a drive down the fairway for you guys, and then like what is completely in the sand or in the woods?
Yeah, I
From
think for us, it like I guess to the drive down the fairway is being introduced to the next young, great technologies that we can grow into unicorns within the region. And that kind of takes everybody that's on this call's help and support. And then where we can get them, if it happens quickly, oh, this technology is awesome. It's in the fintech space. We introduce them to Visa, FIS, US Bank. And then now, boom, they have, 3 pilots being run. Their valuation skyrockets. We, as an organization, we were able to invest. People in town were able to invest. And then it's kind of a win for everyone involved. I think the shot into the woods is momentum slows, events aren't really attended, VCs aren't interested, startups, don't apply, the corporates don't work with the companies that we find here on town, and it kind of just sort of moves slowly along. I think we have an opportunity to learn a lot about each other, learn, a lot about the great things that are already happening with you all, with David, with Carol Ann, with, Dawn, Jill, everybody that's doing, great things around town. Snack as well, people that I've met, and I know there's more that are doing awesome opportunities here in town to really work and grow with each other and invite plug and play in to really then return those invitations to other places.
Yeah, this might be a little in the weeds, but like I've seen some accelerator programs where they really look for like almost verticalized solutions and say, we need this to fit, really strongly with one of the companies. And I've seen programs where they look at horizontal solutions to introduce to all the corporate partners because they would need it to resonate with a bunch of them. So like, is there a specific kind of playbook that you've seen work or resonate well with the client base where or the partners that you have, the corporate partners, where it needs to be like an absolute slam dunk with 3 of the fintechs and be it a fintech deal, or it's an HR solution that can work for every single one of them?
Yeah, we have both. We have like your AI, your supply chain and logistics. Those are kind of your horizontals that sit across every company. And then you have your insurtechs that are strictly, hey, we're going in to work with our insurance partners. But I think the slam dunks here in town is finding the solutions that are within the region, help them grow. And, they don't all have to become unicorns, but how can we make that next company go to a $100 million valuation, $75 million valuation, for 5 years from now, that they now have 75 million in revenue, $200 million in revenue, and they're staying here as well. Then at the same time, we find companies that are interested, whether it's a semiconductor space, a smart city space, and they said, hey, we met so many important VCs, investors, companies that are doing great work in Orlando. We at least need to open a satellite office there to grow and scale our company because that's where our customers are. So that's kind of how I see the slam dunk being. We want to, first, the companies that are on the ground that are already invested here in the community to make sure they have the resources necessary from the plug and play side to get to, the highest level possible. And then vice versa. So that would be kind of my answer to that. What is your interest in the health and wellness tech space? Clearly there's a lot of interest in the health space. We have, an office in Cleveland with that. We're doing part of the ARPA-H, the federal program in Dallas. We launched a sports tech human performance program in Frisco. I think clearly as with what's happening down in Lake Nona, with the sort of medical city with what's to come, I think that could definitely be another area we expand, we grow on and continue, to be a part of. So that's a program that's very big with us. We work with Pfizer, J&J, Roche, Bayer, university hospitals. So a lot of different, health and wellness, opportunities. So if those are in the region as well, we can do that too.
All right. I know we're short on time here. But I'll pause one last time, see if anybody had any final questions. All right. Well, if you scroll up, I know we just had a bunch of questions in here, but there are, I think all three of your emails are in here now. And it sounds like you're all more or less accessible. Sorry to volunteer you all for catching everyone's emails, but you're all more or less accessible if we see interesting companies or want to talk more on how to engage and collaborate in the area.
Absolutely. 100% open. That's encouraged.
Yeah.
It's something it's important to us because, as I've mentioned a couple of times, first, thanks for having us today to let us introduce ourselves, but this is not a community that needs like hand holding. It's a community where there's already amazing work being done, and we want to be a piece of that. It's something that we're really excited about because the foundation is so strong here that we want to continue to figure out how we can grow together, how we can get involved with some of the great things that are already happening. So we appreciate the sort of open arms that we've been invited in with, and want to really return that favor and grow together to where we look back in 5-6 years from now and say, well, look where we were and look where we are continuing to be now.
Yeah. And to be fair, David and I hold hands and skip around all the time, so we might need hand holding. But no, it's great to have you guys involved.
Ken's a
please,
much better skipper than I am, but I try to keep up.
Yeah.
No, we appreciate it.
You got it. So, thank you all for the time, and please reach out with any questions or follow-ups.
Thank